Hi, it's time for a Christmas story, and guess what? I have a visitor today. Look who joined me. Santa. Woohoo! Here we go. The name of our story today is The Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound. A sound a friend had told me I would never hear. The ringing of Santa's sleigh bells. There's no Santa, my friend had said. But I knew he was wrong. Late that night I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From inside my room came the sound of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and I saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. A train in front of his house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around. A conductor stepped and opened the door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket walk from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor called. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me on board. There it is, the train, the Polar Express. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and we ate candies with nougat cinders as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of the towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced forward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. See the wolves, and there's the train going by. How funny. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we went along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. Can you see it right up here at the top of the page? There it is. There's the Polar Express going through the mountains. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice. The great polar ice cap appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. Who lives at the North Pole? You're right, Santa does. Let's see what happens. The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone on the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. "They are gathering on the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the gift?" we all asked. The conductor, "He will choose one of you," the conductor said. "Look!" shouted one of the children. "The elves!" Here's the elves all down here. Hundreds and millions and trillions of elves. The elves! Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded with the streets with Santa's helpers, when the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor let us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of the large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and pranced, ringing their silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I had ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us, and pointing to me, he said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped up into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "What would you like for Christmas?" So exciting. I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave a hug, and he told an elf to cut a bell from a harness of a reindeer. The elf tossed the bell up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high in his hand into the air, and he called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" A clock struck midnight, and the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it into my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names, and he cracked his whip. A team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled above us once, and then he disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," some of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled back. He cupped his hand around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted, and the Polar Express let out a loud blast from his whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When I looked and everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. There, inside the box, I found a note, along with the silver bell. I found this bell in the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. My sister and I heard the bell, but my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." And my dad said, "Oh, too bad, it's broken." When I shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. Can you hear Santa's bell? Only if you truly believe in Santa can you hear the bell. I hear it. Do you hear it? Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! I love you all so much. Merry, Merry Christmas.